Well, Alabama's got a few more weeks of rest, and the good news is they appear to be getting a lot healthier.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. I want to thank you, everydayers, for being every day because you've helped make Locked On the number one sports podcast network there is in the entire known universe. And you can also join our Everydayer Club for $5 a month, $50 for the year. What a great Christmas present. Very easy, lockedonbama.com/everydayerclub. Go check it out. Ad-free podcast, and you get to interact with like-minded people like Jimmy and myself on our Discord channel. So, Jimmy, let's talk a lot about the health because this
free ad. You don't get ads when you listen on podcast.
Free ads. Now, one thing I will say, it's
ad-free. Ad-free, I guess, is a better way to say that than free ads. All the ads are free, but
I think the live reads are still there, but that's only because I do them so well.
And it's impossible to take. I think it's impossible to take out live reads that are a part of the show. But the ads where they break in and tell you about something kind of awesome, you don't have to listen to that. If you don't want, you can pay the $5, and then it's ad free on the podcast, and you get the Discord page.
Okay, so the health of Alabama has been a thing, and I think it hit its bottom during the SEC championship game. Now, we're still not 100%, but when you hear things like Coach DeBoer say, hey, we aren't ruling L.T. Overton out for the Rose Bowl, and you see things like Ty Simpson moving less gingerly in the game, and you've got your wide receivers appear to be running routes well, and you've got Cam Dewberry back, and Kelby Collins is making a sack, and things like that. All of a sudden, you're like, this team may be as healthy as they've been.
Yeah, that's exactly what DeBoer is saying. Again, I'd been told before Oklahoma, but I didn't want to tell you guys because it didn't come from a place I could tell people. Sometimes you hear things and it's kind of off the record. So I couldn't say, but I knew from inside the program that the coaches felt this was the healthiest they've been since like Tennessee. And I wasn't going to say anything, but then Kane Womack, I believe, during his press conference said, I think this is the healthiest we've been since Tennessee. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm free to say it now. And now DeBoer is like openly almost bragging about it. I believe he mentioned that more players ran 20 miles an hour against Oklahoma than they've had since the Tennessee game. So really, that's when things started falling apart health-wise. I remember saying, if y'all want to blame me, that's fine. But I remember saying, boy, what a healthy football team we have. And what I was referencing at the time, because it's impossible to know who's all in the training room getting treatment, what I was referencing was we had lost so few players for the year. I mean, in my experience at Alabama, you lose more than just Jeremiah Beeman for the year. Dre Kirkpatrick gets suspended for the year. But, I mean, you really were only on 2 or 3 players that were not available to you at all. That was a low number. That's what I was talking about. But what I was unaware of, or what no one could possibly be aware of unless you're literally inside the walls, was the long list of players getting treatment just to be able to play in the games. They weren't on the availability report. They weren't lost for multiple games or for the season. They're just dealing with, I would say, almost typical football bangs and bruises. But the numbers for Alabama got really ridiculous for the Georgia game in particular. It's not an excuse. It's just a fact. Now, that's not to say if Alabama played the game all over again with this healthy football team, who knows? Georgia may win 28-7 again. That's very possible. They're a great football team. But it does make me feel better as an Alabama supporter knowing that going into Indiana, this is more Alabama at closer to full strength than we've had since midseason. That's becoming increasingly apparent. Maybe you even get L.T. Overton back. I hear there is a chance. Oh, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, which is weird. The weird part of you being on mute is I'm in a car in Gloucester, Louisiana, and they can hear me.
It's so dumb. I mean, look, my voice still isn't all the way back, and I've still sort of got a sickness, and I'm like, I've got sort of congestion stuff. And so I'm coughing a little bit and clearing my throat. So I'm muting for that reason. For people who are like, why are you being such a moron and muting? That's why. And then you go on a soliloquy, which I appreciate and love, and I forget to unmute myself. It happens. Now, yeah, a chance for LT Overton is better than no chance at all. Certainly. I'm not going to pretend like if he does come back, he would be the LT Overton we all know and love. But it's a little different for me. Last week I made a big deal out of R. Mason Thomas, R being his first name, which is the coolest thing I've ever heard, being back for Oklahoma. And I said, yes, he's awesome. Yes, he's incredible. I don't know that that's going to necessarily make things worse for Alabama because Oklahoma's defense plays so well against Alabama to begin with that I'm not sure R. Mason Thomas makes that big of a difference. Conversely, I think having LT Overton back, even at say 75%, does make Alabama better. We don't have quite the depth or really, I don't think our defensive line is quite as strong as Oklahoma's. So getting another guy back that can help out, I think is positive. I love London Simmons. I love Tim Keenan. I love Kelby Collins. I love all of our defensive linemen. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I wouldn't say that is necessarily our defensive strength. I still consider that to be our defensive backs. But and it's not taking a shot at any of those guys. I'm just saying, David Stone, R. Mason Thomas, those guys were really good. And so I think getting LT Overton back does relieve some pressure and does give Alabama some more depth. That being said, I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. I love all of our defensive linemen. I think Tim Keenan is playing out of his deadgum mind right now. But LT Overton doesn't play that position. So, that's not really going to be a direct conflict.
Well, what gives me some real hope there at that bandit spot, Luke, is the fact that Keon Keeley played so well in the last game against Oklahoma. It's really Jordan Renaud, who per Pro Football Focus, Jordan Renaud did not play well, and he wasn't really flashing during the game. And Pro Football Focus said that Renaud was the lowest graded Alabama defender in the game. But Keon Keeley had a really high grade, and he certainly flashed. I think the combination of LT Overton, if he's able to play just on a pitch count, LT plus Keon would be great because they're both what they're best at is different traits. I think LT is best at setting the edge in the run game. That's what he does better than anything else. Keon is a better pass rusher. I even think LT Overton at 100% health, I'm not sure he's the pass rusher that Keon Keeley is. I think together they'd be a great duo in the game, even if LT's on a pitch count. But I don't want to get too optimistic about that just yet. And like Luke said, even if he comes back, you're definitely not dealing with the guy. He hasn't even practiced in a while. He'd be knocking the rust off. Very similar to what R. Mason Thomas did for Oklahoma, who did not statistically have a good game. Though it is notable, Alabama only had about 1/2 of the offensive yardage in game 2 than they had in game 1. So Oklahoma did a lot of good things defensively. I would assume that includes R. Mason Thomas, who's one of the better players in our conference.
You know what's funny? We did have less yardage, but I think some of that can be attributed to the same reasons Oklahoma had less yardage in the first game. We block a punt that leaves us with a short field. We have a pick six. That means they get an extra possession and we lose a possession. Things like that, they add up. We could have, let's just pretend like we would have gotten another, say, 70 yards total. All of a sudden, yeah, it's still less yardage. It's not like this glaring difference.
Here's another thing that can really put a halt to your offensive yardage accumulation, the end zone. Once you hit the end zone, they stop counting your yards. And it could be that Alabama would have just kept on going, but we don't know because they hit the end zone. Thus, they stopped counting the yards at that point. And as silly as that sounds, that actually is a factor in games like that. But no, Alabama played okay offensively against Oklahoma. Always want people to consider who you're doing it against. And 210 yards or whatever against Oklahoma is a little different than 210 yards against William and Mary. It's a completely different situation. Now, Indiana, these Indiana accounts on Twitter have been shockingly aggressive.
Merciless almost. I'm going to tell you something, Jimmy. I'm with you on that. We could probably spend a whole podcast on it. And I'm going to do a crossover, and hopefully you can make it with the Locked On Hoosiers guy. And I'm going to ask him about that. I mean, the sheer hubris of these guys is out of bounds. And I'm like, look, you're coming at us, and that's fine. I mean, we get it. The nation comes at Bama. I mean, we are the standard. Some people will be like, well, that's why we hate you. You're arrogant. Well, we kind of are the standard. Sorry. It is what it is. And
your own fans were chanting, we want Bama back in October.
Exactly.
At their game.
So, but I'm saying, we'll talk about Monshawn Sales, one of the 5-star receivers Alabama just got a crystal ball for. His nickname is Bama, by the way. And he's in Indianapolis. And somebody retweeted that happened and said, well, I hope he waits to see Indiana beat Alabama by 40. I'm like, whoa. I mean, why would – what are you talking about?
And they may win the game. They're a good football team. No one is disputing that Indiana isn't good. I mean, if someone out there is saying that, they're obviously haven't paid attention to this season. They're the only team in the playoff with 8 teams left. They're the only team in the playoff with 2 wins against teams still standing. That means you're good. You're good. They've beaten 2 teams still standing. So they're a good football team. But we're going to beat Alabama by 40. Also, they love to compare stats, like, oh, y'all's rushing yards is this and our rushing yards is this. You do have to take into account that a lot of these stats that are being highlighted by Indiana fans are not opponent adjusted. And there is no question in any neutral observer's mind, Alabama has played a much more demanding schedule. Now, it is true, Indiana's schedule is not a joke. They also added Ohio State to it and won. They played Oregon. They played Iowa. Illinois is a pretty decent team. They played several teams with winning records, several. I think their overall strength of schedule is 30, but that includes the extra game against Ohio State. Their stats are not opponent adjusted, whereas Alabama's stats have been accumulated against one of the top 10 schedules in college football.
Yeah, but I'm with you. The aggressive, I think aggressiveness is the best word. Like, they have really been coming at Bama fans. And, the thing is, there probably are some Bama fans as my phone rings, for the love of God. Jimmy, you talk about it for a second.
Yeah, you know what? Luke could solve that by keeping his phone on mute. And I've told him many times, I'm like, hey, when your phone rings in your office, if you had your phone on, if you had the video on mute, then this wouldn't be a problem. And maybe you should consider that. But now I do want to talk about Monshawn Sales, and we can do that after the break, because I have a lot to say about Sales. They're not, and I'll start with this: the tease for how good Sales is. Not every 5-star is the same. Some 5 stars are more like 6 stars. And I think Sales may be in that category.
Whoa. Okay. But what I was going to say was, before my phone, and by the way, I've turned off the ringer. It's funny. I can mute myself and not my phone, and it's just so dumb. But, I feel like some Alabama fans who normally would
chirp for all these years, you found the hack.
I feel like a lot of Alabama fans, I'm not necessarily a chirp back guy until we do it. I'd prefer not to trash talk until we beat you. Okay. I prefer that way. But there are the normal crew that would chirp back. I think they've even been hesitant, because it's like 10 years ago would be like, are you out of your mind? We're going to slap you all over the country. But right now we're not even sure which Bama's going to show up just yet. I mean, I like the direction we're headed. I like the health. I like a lot of things, but we're not sure ourselves. So I think it sort of keeps us from chirping back as much as we want to. All right, let me tell you about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. Yeah, it does. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up all the time. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. NFL and FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you. Jimmy Stein guaranteed. Also, want to remind everybody about the Everydayer Club. Please do go check it out. It's $5 a month, $50 for the year if you want to go that route. We got a Discord page. Jimmy and I are active on there. Jimmy's very active on there. And it's an ad-free podcast opportunity if you want to just bypass the ads. Again, Jimmy and I are not going to skimp at all on what we do here. We're going to continue to do the same thing here. It's just an opportunity to get in touch with us a little more and get in touch with like-minded people more. So go to Everydayer Club, Locked On Bama .everydayer club. Oh, wait a minute. Let me find out what it is. I'm sorry. I'm going to put it on the banner. Look, I'm still kind of sick, y'all. I'm not kidding around. It's lockedonbama.com/everydayer club, lockedonbama.com/everydayer club. That's what it is. Sorry about that. Okay. I'll leave it crawling for a minute. So somebody want to get a Christmas present. Yeah, let's go ahead and, before we get into Monshun sales, let's talk about, has Lottie Brooks become our number one? You and I have been so high on this guy. We were high on him before a lot of people. And that's not to pat us on the back. Sometimes we do oversell a guy. We didn't oversell this guy. And I know he scored his first 2 touchdowns of the year this game. But he has been on the precipice of greatness just about every game that he's had an opportunity. And frankly, I love Germ Bernard too. And Germ, to me, is not necessarily number one, but he's the A receiver. I really would look to Germ first because I think he's so dependable and experienced. But if I have to have a big play right now, if I've got to have somebody's got to get in the end zone, I'm throwing it to Lottie Brooks. And I can't illustrate the point better. I've watched the first touchdown Lottie Brooks scored against Oklahoma more than I've watched the pick six. And the reason is he gets the first down. I've also watched, by the way, the Oklahoma broadcast of it where they broadcast in the booth and it's just their reaction. And they say something like, well, he got the first down. Oh wow, he's still going. Oh my God, he got in the end zone. And it is wild because he corkscrews into the end zone almost unnecessarily. But he didn't know it was unnecessary at the time. He was like, if somebody's here, I'm about to spin shoot him into the goalpost. And he just, his effort was unbelievable.
Well, we're about to talk about Monshun Sales, who is absolutely a different prospect than Brooks. But what I said about Sales and the T's is not every 5-star receiver is the same. You can certainly say not every 3-star receiver is the same. And this is what we're saying about Lottie Brooks, and he's an excellent example of why you can't take the star system. Both Luke and I are big fans of the recruiting star system and believe in it and believe in why they do it. And in general, think accuracy-wise, they do about as good a job as it can be possibly done. But it doesn't mean that everything in it is to be taken as gospel fact. It's an art in evaluating talent. It's not a science. You're going to miss. There's going to be 5 stars that never pan out. There'll be 3 stars that become big celebrities. And Lottie Brooks is one of those guys. Now, we were saying during the process, we're like, hey, here's what's wrong with the star system or how the star system can miss someone. And there's all sorts of reasons they missed on Lottie Brooks. Number one is the kid didn't advertise himself. He didn't go to all these camps. He didn't work on getting ranked. Matter of fact, he really, I think, went to 2 camps after his sophomore year and after his junior year, Alabama both times. This is where he wanted to go. He didn't campaign for offers elsewhere. He didn't campaign to move up in the rankings, and that is a thing that does happen. But we knew from watching the tape alone and from hearing what Alabama's coaches were saying who evaluated him during the summer camp that this kid was special. He's not a 3-star, he's special. And, boy, he's proved it on the field. Now, here with the Indiana matchup, though, this is really interesting, and where Luke was talking about Jeremy Bernard. My money would be on Jeremy having the bigger game than Lottie, even though in my head, I'm like, boy, we got to do what we can to get the ball to 17 because he's going to make something happen right now. Get the ball to 17. Everything in football is so matchup based. Just weirdly, perhaps or arguably the best player on Indiana's entire defense may be D'Angelo Pons. He is their nickel corner. He's the guy that would be on Lotzie or Brooks for the game. This guy is a potential first-round pick, more probable to be more like a second-round pick in the draft in April. but he's also an upperclassman who's about to be a second-round pick, and Latsier Brooks is a true freshman. It's a big ask to say, hey, this Indiana dude's NFL ready, but we need you to be the guy that beats Indiana, even though you're matched up with D'Angelo Pons. So Pons is think of him as a first-team All-SEC type. It's exactly what he would be. He's just a real talented kid. That's their best player potentially. He's the one matched up on Latsier Brooks. So for that reason, if I had to bet today on what Alabama receiver has the biggest game, I'm going to go with Jeremy Bernard. Well, twice in one.
God bless. God bless.
It's probably a good omen. Frankly. I bet if we went back and looked at mutes,
probably a better podcast
during game weeks. I think the more you mute, the more chance we have of winning the game. So I'm going to consider
my daughter, my 9-year-old, does have a 102 fever this morning. So like, I'm scared something's going around the house. But anywho, so let's talk about Sales here for a minute. This is a guy originally from Alabama. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but several ties to Alabama. His nickname is Bama. He's a big wide receiver. I'm going to just pull him up here. He's like
6'5", 201, I think.
Yeah, and so he's not exactly the same size as, say, Sadarian Morgan, but he's right there at it. And he's the number 2 receiver in the country. Rivals has him as the national 14 player, but still only a 4-star. He is 6'5", 201, plays at North Lawrence in Indianapolis. He's a 5-star by ESPN and 247. The confidence level in the crystal ball is like a 60%. But I do believe he ends up in this class. And the other thing that's great about this is this particular pick is fantastic, right? That's great. But there are a lot of other guys, Elijah Haven, still trending to Alabama right now.
I bet Alabama today. I mean, not certain. I'm not doing a crystal ball myself or a RPM or whatever, but I would say Elijah Haven to Alabama today. And Monsoon Sales will be a part of that. I mean, you got to throw it to somebody, right? I'm sure Elijah Haven has watched tape of Sales and is like, yeah, I want to throw it to that guy. He's hard to miss. He's got the wingspan of a pterodactyl. He's, right now my comp, I want to watch more of him before I get too loud about it. But I think a decent comp for Monsoon is Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Give me all that smoke. Give me Mike Evans, who just, by the way, had another touchdown. He'll never die. Mike Evans is just going to be there forever. And I still think about that 94-yard touchdown he had against us.
Where 13. That's how long ago that was. And he's still.
I believe he toasted Cyrus Jones, if I remember.
Cyrus Jones is what I remember, who was a heck of a cornerback at Alabama. But Monsoon is he's got his frame. Some kids that have that frame grow into tight ends or small H-backs. That is not this kid. This kid is flat out a wide receiver, almost no different than a Lottie Brooks or a Ryan Williams. He's also, I think, somewhat similarly sized in a way to Isaiah Horton. But Horton, to me, is I call him possession receiver extraordinaire. He is a possession receiver, but one that the NFL is going to value because he's so good at it. Sales is more of a playmaker, built like probably down the road, built like Horton, but a vertical playmaker like Mike Evans. And that's why, he's built like a possession receiver, but he plays like a playmaking Lottie Brooks, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard type, even though he's 6'5", 201. It's hard to find a comp for that reason. Keep in mind that even though he's listed as 201 right now, wouldn't be surprised if he's a little bit lighter than that. But in college, after 2 or 3 years at an Alabama, I think he's going to end up in about the 215, 218 range, just as a guess looking at his frame.
Then there's Maxwell Hiller from Pennsylvania. It's really down to Alabama, South Carolina, and Maryland. And you got to like Alabama's chances there. I know Alabama's involved with John Meredith, the number 6 player overall.
Hiller's got a brother that's a basketball player that Alabama basketball likes. How about wouldn't that be something?
Love it. Just love it all. It's awesome. All right. So, Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to give some Christmas presents. And we may do this in a couple of podcasts in a row as we think about them. We're going to give some Christmas presents to some Alabama players and maybe even some coaches and fans. Right now, though, I want to tell you about Gametime. Gametime is awesome. Love it. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few clicks. Look, I opened the Gametime app to look at upcoming college football games, and I was surprised how fast I could find great seats. I might be going to the Rose Bowl. In fact, I am going to the Rose Bowl, so I'm looking forward to it. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply because they apply to everything. Again, that's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today and be happy as a lark. So
going to Pasadena, huh?
Yeah, well, we were going to LA anyway. It looked like for New Year's just to do something different because my 9-year-old, she got to do something. And I was like, we're going to be in LA anyway, you say. And then it worked out.
Quite the coincidence that you were potentially going to LA and now the team's going to LA. That's good karma too, along with the mute. So I like where this is going.
Yeah, everything's pointing Bama. All right, so Christmas gifts we did this on the Locked On SEC Squad show last night, and my gift number one was I shouldn't spoil it, but I won't give the whole thing, that spiel I did on that show. I said my gift to Bama fans is this: the knowledge and wisdom to understand that 10-2 is the new 12-0. 10-2 is the new 12-0. If you go 10-2 as the Alabama Crimson Tide in any schedule from here to infinity, you will be in the college football playoffs. Now, Vandy may raise their hand and go, what about us? You do understand there are different circumstances there. I mean, there are brand differences which do matter. And Alabama did play a much tougher schedule than Vanderbilt, by the way, and has better wins. But Alabama, if you go 10-2, you're in the playoffs. I don't want to lose 2 games a year. I know you don't want to lose 2 games a year. But the goal now is no longer going undefeated and, winning the old Oaken bucket or winning the SEC. The goal is get in the playoffs and see what happens. And that's exactly what we got to start doing. And I think everybody should learn to accept that.
In support of what Luke said, I couldn't agree more. And how about this? I've been working on this tweet, and since I'm kind of on the family Christmas trip here, I don't know that I'll get to still work on it, but I'll go ahead and spoil it and let y'all handle it because this is unbelievable. But to support what Luke said, if you changed the outcomes of just 4 SEC games, just 4, and those SEC games were all decided by 5 points or less, these 4, just change 4 outcomes that were decided by 5 points or less, there would have been a 7-way tie to win the SEC at 6-2. 4 outcomes, all decided by 5 points or less, there would have been a 7-team tie at 6-2, pretty much exactly proving what Luke is saying. That's how close we came to there being a 7-way tie. And if y'all remember this summer, I was saying, hey, my bold prediction is a 6-way tie at 6-2. I missed. And again, it was a bold prediction. It wasn't an actual prediction. It was bold, like, hey, this could happen. It was kind of close. 4 outcomes away for a 7-way tie. Those 4 games all decided by 5 points or less. One of them would have been Alabama losing an additional game, by the way. But hey, just pick one. Heck, South Carolina. How easily could that have gone the other way? One play. Oh, 3 mutes. It's official. I am diagnosing.
Kidding me. I didn't even know I did it that time.
I think that's 3. I'm diagnosing you. You are ill. I mean, because that is over. That's not you.
Oh,
that's not you. This is not you. This is ill you. You're ill and fighting through it, much like the Alabama football team had to do against Georgia. This is your Georgia game. This is your Georgia game in Atlanta.
All right, I'll give one. I tell you what, I'll give you a chance to think about your presents because I sort of did spring this topic on you, and you can bring your presents.
I got one.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to give the Seinfeld series on DVD to Ty Simpson, the biggest Seinfeld fan that's not Jimmy and Luke. Ty Simpson famously stated that he would, he gets up for games by watching episodes of Seinfeld.
Are you serious?
He did say that. Yeah, this is true. You didn't know this? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Ty Simpson says, in terms of like getting ready for games and clearing his mind, he and Kramer's his favorite character, and he enjoys Seinfeld. And I'm like, well, that was an easy way to become my favorite Alabama football player of all time. Ty.
Let me add this. You know, I've said this before. Okay. And look, I'm not trying to bring anybody down here at Christmas, and I have no problem saying this. I'm pretty open about it, but I do take antidepressants, right? And I have for years, needed them, and it's helped a ton. But I've also learned more about stuff like this. I also have some anxiety that I deal with, and everything's under control. Don't sweat it. I don't need any empathy, sympathy, nothing. I want to get to a point here that I heard something about a year ago that said, because my wife can't understand why when I come home, I put on Comedy Central and hope that either Parks and Rec or The Office is on. She's like, you've seen every episode a gazillion times. I said, I know, but I love watching them. I read somewhere that people with high anxiety love to watch shows over and over again because they know how they end and it doesn't leave them on the edge of their seat. So Ty Simpson's loving watching the same kind of show over and over again is so on brand because you and I have talked about that he does seem to have some anxiety. And yes, you can even see it in his face sometimes, but I'm just saying that makes so much sense to me that he's a Seinfeld fan and just watches it over and over. That is wild. Well,
I would also say that it may be because of that. Now, I've read the same thing, and it makes so much sense. And I have some family experience with something very similar to what you're describing. But I would also say it may prove that Ty just has excellent taste.
That is also true. He may also just be, hot for all of Jerry's girlfriends. Jerry's girlfriends through that show were hot every time.
Well, it's obvious who co-owned the show with Larry.
Yeah, it is true. Because when
what Jerry did at all the pitches, he's like, Jerry, any ideas for this week's show? Yeah. Okay. I'm dating this hot model, right? I was like, this is where we're going to start. I'm dating this hot model. And Larry David's like, okay, what happens? And Jerry's like, I don't know. Y'all tell me what happens.
Yeah.
Y'all come up with something funny, but we're going to start with the premises. I'm dating a hot model. So y'all send some headshots and I'll pick one out. And then y'all tell me what y'all came up with.
How about this?
Every week.
We get Terry Hatcher, and the whole show is me talking about her endowment. How about that? It's a good show, guys. I don't know. I don't have any jokes. I'm just telling you what the show.
I saw Jerry Stiller one time himself in like a stand-up kind of thing, and I'll make this family friendly, but I don't know. There is a way to make a family friendly thing, but it's like while Seinfeld was running, and he said, "I'm sorry, I'm here. I know a lot of y'all expected Jerry, but Jerry couldn't make it. Jerry was tied up on a date with a model on a pile of cash." Didn't say on a date.
Okay, I like it. That part makes it even funnier. All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.